welcome to Live with Mama Coco Sundays. Yes, I specify Sunday because Sunday is based on life and style, fashion, life living, failures in life, rejuvenation, getting back on your feet. And today we are blessed to have our sister Alicia Edwards. Yes, Alicia Edwards. And Alicia was on the show before a few weeks ago, but we were unable to get her to complete her show because of bad connection there in Tobago. Today I pray that we are blessed with a better situation, and we are going to be able to hear her completely. I believe, I pray that happen today. Blessings, Irma Macmillan. Thank you so much for your patience and your consistency. Yes. And so this is Live with Mama Coco Sunday. My name is Cora Pantin, and I want you to join me to welcome Alicia Edwards, yes, to the show. Welcome, Alicia.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for having me, and good afternoon to all the people who are viewing this broadcast.
It's an honor for me, and I'm so excited that I am just here praying that everything will work well with our show today, and whatever people missed the last time, you are going to make sure that we hear it some more. So Alicia, can you sit a little higher?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. We want you not to be too close to our questions there. So Alicia Edwards, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you, and I want you to tell us about yourself. Who are you and where are you from?
Right. So good afternoon, everybody. I am actually a Dallas girl. For Tobago people, I'm a country girl, and I come from Delaford. I was born and raised in Delaford, and my navel string is planted under a long mango tree somewhere in Tunning. My grandmother, for the older folks, is Petty Edwards. My maternal grandmother is Clarissa Mundy, and I'm related to all the Edwards, Melville, Duke, Archer, Mundy people that may be tuning in or that may know of those people. So those are my relatives on that side of the island.
Welcome, Alicia. So the people of Delaford, you guys are blessed one more time to have another Delaford person on Mama Coco Life and Style. You are so blessed to be able to mix, match, compare, contrast, align with the lifestyle of the people of Delaford. As I always will say, that Delaford is a very important village there in Tobago, in the east. I say so because one of my shows to come, hello, thank you, Father, that we could have perception, that we can be here to intercept and to intercede and to be part of life changes and things that we lost as a community. Thank God we are here willing and able to restore and to educate those in power to know that they are lacking and they are missing out on a great village in Tobago, where some of maybe the most teachers came out from. I know Charlottesville have a lot also, and in the space side, yes, but Delaford have some of the most doctors in Tobago from one little village there in the east. More doctors, more nurses, and when we have a show, a special show, I will be able to expound and to, as we say when we are younger, to expatiate about Delaford and the indigenous lifestyle of the people of Delaford. Yes. And it's awesome. So Alicia, tell us about yourself. Who are you and where are you from?
Okay, so I was born in Delaford, and I went to school at Bishop's Scarborough RC. because my father taught school there, and then I went to school.
speak some more about your Scarborough. Let
Well,
people know you, although you're from Delaford, and Delaford have RC school, but because your father and the ability to own a vehicle where he can transport, his children, and even though he doesn't have a transportation there, he will still take his children to go to the Scarborough RC. So a lot of people from Scarborough know you from a child.
Yes, because my father taught at Scarborough RC forever. Delaford village people will know him as Blacks. People from town will know him as Mr. Edwards, and everybody who went through Scarborough RC would know him as the quiet man who hardly spoke, who gave the most licks, and who was always planting up something in the schoolyard. So there are 6 of us. I'm the first of 6 children for my mother and my father, and all of us went to Scarborough RC school. We had a wonderful time at that school. That was a time when there were nuns at the convent up the hill, and there were parish priests, and it was different from how it was now. We were like a community. The teachers looked out for us. Everybody knew everybody because I was a teacher's daughter. We got special attention, not always welcome. And so we had a wonderful childhood. After Scarborough RC, I went on to...
So did you grow up Catholic, with Catholic views and ideas? Did you grow up being a Catholic?
Well, I was baptized in the Catholic Church. I'm not going to tell that story today. I was baptized at the age of 3, 2.5, 3 in the Catholic Church. Don't ask, my mother will tell that story at some point in time. I made first communion at the church, and then I didn't do the confirmation business afterwards. I think as I got older, I realized that, certain doctrines and so were not really sitting very well with me and all of that. And I opted to take a back seat. But my children, my granddaughter is going to Scarborough RC school. And so the connection with the school and the traditions of the school still remain strong. We support any activity there is in Scarborough RC. And I still think it's one of the best schools in Tobago. They've moved to a new building. But somehow I think the heart of the school has gone with them, and they will continue to produce good and decent model citizens of Tobago for many, many years to come.
So in the Scarborough diocese there, do you guys still have nuns teaching there, or nuns are still around?
Well, actually, the last nun was Sister Phyllis, and she died earlier this year.
Oh.
So the convent is really closed now.
No, peace. I said peace.
Yes, so the convent is closed now, and so that's an era that has gone. But in my time, our principal was Sister Stanislaw. She was an Irish nun. I think she was one of the first white people I ever saw. And one of the things that I always remember about her was how humble she was. She was the first one to pick up papers and clean drains in the school. And she would come down early in the morning, and there it was our principal in a white habit, and she'd be going, come on, help me take up these papers. And we would all be putting our hands in the drain and doing whatever. And so to this day, I'm never too fancy to clean up and tidy up and to do that kind of thing. And I credit her with that. She was a down-to-earth person. After her, we had Sister Juliana and a couple other people. But worldwide, the Catholic Church is having issues in terms of attracting and retaining people to be nuns and priests and so on. And so it's sad that that era has gone. I don't know if nuns will ever come back to Tobago, but time will tell. Time will tell.
Love that. I love your conclusion. Time will tell.
Time will tell, yes.
So you think that more should be done in Tobago with the Catholic ministry? Well,
remember, if for people who have been looking on, the Catholic Church worldwide has been having its own convulsions. For the first time, there was a Latin American Pope elected. He came with a different view of what Catholicism is. He has been challenging established doctrines about a whole host of things. And the church is in transition, as is everything else. And I think that as the church figures out how it's going to work with this new normal or whatever you want to call it, I think that they will figure out what they want to do. But in the meantime, there are lots of faithful, even though I'm no longer Catholic. A lot of my friends are Catholic. A lot of my friends are very active in the Catholic Church. They are acolytes and lay readers and everybody going on. And they're just doing what they have to do, because the work of the body of Christ has to continue, and it will continue. It might change, because in the days of Christ, there was a different kind of church, and the church that I know may not be the church of the next century or the next decade, but it's still going to be the place where people get help to connect with a supreme being.
Yes, and people get help, and schools and everything that they had going for centuries.
Yes.
So tell us about your educational journey.
Well, so I went to Scarborough School, and then I went to Bishop's afterwards. And when I went to Bishop's, it was like, you know, wow, there were all these children from all over Tobago. And it was weird being a country girl, because most of my friends, I mean, they were country people.
I am not hearing you. I hope the audience is getting a better view of you when it comes to well, go ahead. I understand that you sound great.
Okay, so yeah, what I'm saying is that I went to Bishop's High School in Tobago. It wasn't as big and as established as it is now. A lot of work has gone in from alumni contributions and so on. And we had a wonderful time at Bishop's High School. I was in Anstey House. In my sixth form year, I was head girl. I got a lot of exposure at that school with debating and all of that. You know, so the Bishop's experience was a good one for me. So it taught me to think critically, to study independently, and those things have kind of helped me in good stead as I moved on to other pursuits. So after I left school, I had to work for a while, because I was the first of 6 children and my parents were poor, so they couldn't really send me to university. So I taught school for a few years. I went to Teachers College and I did the diploma thing. And then I went on to the University of the West Indies, where I studied management, and I completed an MSc there, and, you know, a couple other things. But I don't talk too much about like papers and letters behind my name and so on, because the essence of people is not really the things that they know. Because if you have a master's in something, you really have knowledge in a very narrow scope of things. You're specialized in something. And life requires a more broad-based kind of knowledge, a more broad-based kind of experience and openness to learning. And so I always say that I'm a perpetual student. Every single day, I learn something. It might be something as silly as, you know, I have a new flower. A new flower came up in my garden today. Somebody gave me a plant, and I've never seen a flower like that. So I learned about that today. Tomorrow I learned about something else, but I'm open to learning every single day, because that's what the essence of life is about. So I don't restrict myself in terms of the things that I've done academically, because that was then, and the journey to learning and new knowledge and so continues.
So you look forward to meeting new people, new ideas. You grasp at the things that could do good in your life and in the life of other people. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, and oh yes, I'm learning to bake bread. Or somebody, I'm just reading here, I'm learning to bake bread. But the thing though is that I learn something from every single person I meet. And so when I go anywhere, I would start, my daughter said, you always talking to somebody. But every time I talk to somebody, I always learn something. So I start conversations, I talk to people, I make links, and you know, it kind of opens you up to different kinds of experiences. It gives you empathy, because sometimes you may have an established view about something, and when you talk to somebody else, you realize you're seeing it from a different perspective. I like to talk a lot to young people, because I mean, I'm part of the old generation now. I'm an oldie now, even though I feel 25, I'm an oldie. But when you talk to this new generation, you realize that they are living in a new reality. The way they think about things is a whole lot different. And if we are to remain relevant and contribute and be influential in their world, we have to take some time to kind of see where their head is, understand where they're coming from, so that we will be able to get that connection for trust to be built and for bridges to be bridged and for progress to be made. Because no generation can do it all alone. We have to kind of, you know, link hands one behind the other and build on what the other one has done with that.
So you are feeding us today with the quality knowledge that we really need to move forward and to get away from stigmatism, yes, and from the norm and from the normal things that people still will have to be asking themselves about. So while you were in Bishops, did you know clearly what you wanted to do?
Well, the thing about it is that my life is really a series of turns, because the things that I wanted to do then were not the things that I ended up doing, but what I eventually ended up doing and being is better than what I had planned. So in my Bishop's days, I was a science major, right? A science major. I did all sciences at school. And if you ask me then what I wanted to be, I wanted to win the Nobel Prize for chemistry, because I was going to be on a research team that would find the cure for AIDS, right? I'm immune system obsessed. And somehow or the other, I thought that was where my life was going to be. I love chemistry, I love experimentation, and I'm doing it now with different things, but that is where I thought my life would be. And so when it was time to go to university, I wanted to go and do a degree in chemistry. That is what I wanted to study. I want to do a degree in chemistry and biology and so. But I had to work to go to university, and there was no part-time program for those in that area. It was a full-time day program, and I had to go to work. And so I said, you know what? I'm just gonna sign up with this management degree. I didn't do any business subjects in school, but I'm gonna sign up, and this is what I'm gonna do. And that is how that evolved there. But even though I didn't actually go into science, I am a science buff. I read science journals. I read reference things. I'm always looking at studies. I read the strangest things in the world. Because you see, we can't just prove things by saying that they are. There are established protocols in the universe. There's what you call evidence-based learning, and there's figuring out and experimenting to see how things go. And my life has really been an experiment. My health journey has been an experiment. Some of the things that I do now has been an experiment, because only two things can happen. You could find out something new, or you could make a bomb and something would go terribly wrong. But it ties in again with the whole idea of being open to thinking about things differently, to trying things differently, to build on the knowledge that you have already and step out in a different direction. And so it's better for me now, because I think that if I had gone into a lab and done the AIDS thing, I don't know what I would have been doing now, you know. But I'm pleased with the life, this new life that I've gotten, because I believe that everything happens for a reason. And so sometimes you can't get too bogged down like Lot's wife about the things that no longer are there for you, but you just have to turn your back and go forward. And my life has been a series of doing that. Yes.
Hey, challenging. This is what I'm talking about. This is the reason why I had was to get this change from the normal platform of Facebook, and God deliver this platform. And I want to thank my daughter again for the response and her responsibilities, because I know she's the producer of the show, and she's the editor too of all questions and putting them into order. And yeah, I know I'm hearing what you like, so I know that you like Dr. Duke.
Yes, and you see that's the thing about it, is that, I mean, for you, you have always been a trailblazer. You've never been afraid to do things differently, to step out in faith. And I mean, at a point in time when everybody would say, oh, I'm done raising children, I've done what I've had to do, and I'm going to retire, you are now channeling your energy in a different direction, and you're doing things in your own way from where you are, because you don't live here anymore. You could say, well, I'm not in Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't matter what happens. But you see, when your navel string is planted where it's planted, there is a deep sense of commitment. There is a deep sense of care. There is a deep sense of, I'm trying to find the right word, but it's not coming to me. But there is something that pulls you back to the place of your birth, that makes you want to see things go well, because maybe you have family living here, maybe you'd want to come back here one day, but whatever it is. And that's the way I feel about Tobago, and that's the way I feel about Delaford.
Legacy, you have,
yes,
you have been able to create,
yes,
maintain a
yes,
legacy.
yes.
So Alicia, thank you so much for the compliments and the rejuvenating words. Thank you so much. For you, and I'm so loving this. I really, you know, when the sight of you to be on my show, I didn't know your eloquence. I didn't know what you have more in stock for us and in store for us. But I know you come from a breed that is great. I shouldn't use the word breed, right? But I'm gonna, cause breed mostly is for animals, no?
So we get where you're coming from. Yes.
So Alicia, tell us about the life that you have built for yourself after initially completing your educational pursuits.
Right. So I went to university and I taught school for a while. And I've taught at different levels of the system. I taught at primary school, I taught at secondary school, I've lectured at university level, I've tutored, I've done thesis support and a whole host of things. I've done some consulting work, because I don't believe in just doing one thing. My father was a school teacher, but he planted garden, he pulled bull. My mother, you know, she was a housewife. We had a shop. She baked and sold.
Your father pulled bull and he also reared animals and kill them sometimes.
And kill them sometimes, because I used to go around the village taking orders for pork. He would raise pigs. So one of my jobs, I was the eldest child. I would have to go around the village, and there were no phones or cell phones, so you had to go by everybody's house. Good day, Miss Edna. Daddy killing a pig next week. How many pounds of meat you want? And you have to write it down, maybe take a down payment. And then when he killed the pig, actually, there I was with this washpan going around the village with this on my head. And I mean, I'm a bishop's girl, right? All my tongue friends. I mean, that's a strange dichotomy of your life, because you're in tongue and you're with these tongue people, because, you know, tongue people always can be stush. I mean, we call them low-side people, and that's not complimentary, but, you know, tongue people can be a little stush. And they don't understand the life of country people. You know, we couldn't get FM radio. Our TV didn't show very well. TV stations didn't show very well. So you hardly saw anything on the TV. FM band didn't really come to the country for a long time. So when everybody was talking about 100, you didn't have it. So you're telling them about waking up to see about rabbits and to see about pigs and see about fowls before you come to school. And they wonder. And then they say, but this country girl and too bad. So it was a strange life, because you had this tongue life, right? Where this tongue life. And then when you came, bougie, and then when you came home, there you were wetting the pig. And that was one of the most peaceful times of my life, and something that I really want to go back to. I don't eat meat, but I tell my family, I said, what will make me really happy is having a pig pen. And probably just 2 or 3 pigs. And all I want to do is go and shovel things in that pig pen and wet the pig, because it was one of the most peaceful times of my childhood. So
you learn how to scrub a pig with a scrubbing brush and soap.
I was the eldest child. I was a girl. I have 4 brothers and 1 more sister, and then I have a stepsister. So it was like 7 of us at that point in time, but I was the biggest one. And so I was the one that had to kind of lead everybody. So I was in charge of cleaning the pig pen in the morning, sometime in the middle of the day if we were home and the place was hot. I had to go outside and wet the pig. We had a dashing patch out behind, you know, so there is no embarrassment on my part about manual labor. There's no embarrassment about honest work. There is no stushness about me in terms of not wanting to put my hand in dirt and all of that, because that's part of the essence of the life of Tobagonians. Tobagonians were people who could flex. We would put on our best and dress up and look real fancy. But when we took off those things, we were people who could work and who could build ourselves. And so when I see Tobago people being kind of lazy and giving up now, and so it's a kind of difficult place for me to be, because everybody had something planted in their backyard. Everybody had 2 animals. Everybody was doing something. Because we're kind of getting off point, but I want to make this point, because in Delaford, everybody in Delaford did a couple things, right? Everybody in Delaford did a couple things. People planted, people sold sows, people made pone, people came out and sold in the evening. People, there were markets under Mr. Blackman's house. If people could remember, we had Mr. Dunstan with the rum shop, Miss Almy, and we had Joanne's shop further down the road. You understand? And we had so many people in the village that were actually
a shop right next to Dunstan.
Yes, and then up front, my grandmother had a shop, but then there was Miss Edna, there was Dougie shop, there was Miss Virgie shop further down.
You talking about lately? I'm talking about where the health office was. They also had a business there also.
That was before my time. But when you think about people like Miss Monica, God bless her soul, Miss Henny, I think she was an artist. She used to sell pone. And you think about all those women in the village and the men, Mr. Gani Mark and all the men who would fish down the bay, you know, and all those people who were busy and actively earning an income, raising their children and building a life for themselves around whatever was going on. And you realize that we're in a different time, and the mindset of people has become, I think, feeble in a way. People have become feeble. People give up easily. And we can't do that, because life isn't going to get any easier. The resources of the state are never going to be enough for everybody, right? But there is a built-in ingenuity, there's a built-in creativity, there's a built-in resistance and resilience in Tobago people.
So you are now telling us that the people of Delaford, how you know it and how you believe there should be a continuation, you know, of the lifestyle, to roll back deep in the pit. But in order to get out of where we are right now when it comes to agriculture and everything, remember, fish used to come from Charlottesville, but fish used to come out of Delaford. Like when them pull the same and they bring in jacks. It's truckload of jacks coming down.
And to this day, I'm a fish snob. I am a fish snob. I can go somewhere and I can tell you the kind of water that the fish was raised in. I don't eat fish in Trinidad because the fish from Caranage and even Northside doesn't taste the same as Tobago fish. You know, so, but the point is this. If we look at evidence, because I'm evidence-based, if we drive through our villages, right? Those of us who are a few years older, and it's not just Delaford. You drive through Roxborough, you drive through Speyside. Let's look at the evidence. Think about how those villages were and how they are now. Everywhere there was a business, it's now shuttered or turned into something else, or it's just an empty building. Everywhere there were people doing things in the village, the life has more moved out of the village. And so we are losing the essence of what made us who we are, because we have moved too far. We have moved too far from our moorings, and where we are now is not working. If it was working, it was fine. We could have continued doing it. But I think the time has come for us to stop and say, I don't think we're really moving forward in a way. And maybe what we've been doing so far is not working. So we need to try a new way. We need to go back. We need to experiment with the things that happened before and see if there is not some wisdom from our elders that we could take forward. And that is what this phase of my life has been about. Actually going back to some of the things that my grandmother did. Because one of the things that my grandmother did, my maternal grandmother, she was a widow. And she raised 4 children all by herself, working for the Rosenwalls on the Kingsway estate. She was a cook. And she ate everything from her garden, everything from her garden. She had pigs, she had chickens.
So the Rosenwald, they were white people.
They were white people. They were white people.
So they became part of Delaford history because of slave plantations or what? Tell us.
Right. Bit. So the Kings Bay Estate.
Then we go back to your teaching.
Right. So the Kings Bay Estate was one of the, it was traditionally a slave plantation, and the Rosenwalds came from the States and they bought this place as a place to retire. But they were...
Let us get it clear. The Rosenwalds were Americans or British?
They were Americans.
They were Americans.
They were Americans, right? And so they came to Tobago, and this was supposed to be just like a vacation place in the tropics for them. But as they got older, they decided to live there full time. So they were there for probably 9 or 10 months of the year, and they would probably go home once in a while. I think the ashes of the husband is actually sprinkled in the estate itself. Mm-hmm. But so they had this estate, and they would grow citrus and fruits mainly, and they would sell. But being a child of the estate, we would have we would be free to eat as much as we want. So we grew up having fruits by the crocus bag, access to everything. There was the waterfall, there was cocoa, there was everything there. And my grandmother worked for the Rosenwalds as a cook. And she made $1 a day initially. She said she used to work for $1 a day, and she worked, I think, for 29 days for the month. So she made $29. And she took care of all her children. But the way she was able to take care of her children on that salary was because she was planting everything else that she needed. Oh. So that $29 was not just going for groceries, right?
So the Rosenwald, we just have to make sure that people who listening to us, because it's all over the world, we are being heard and being seen. It's not like we're talking on a radio station. We are there visually. And right. Rosenwald, they want slave owners. They bought the estate after slavery.
They bought the estate after slavery. They donated where the Kings Bay waterfall is now, and I think it's having some rejuvenation. They donated that to the state because their land extended all the way up there. Since they've died, there have been some, the children never bothered to come, and the estate is just there. But while they were alive, it really was a vibrant. There was cocoa, lots of activity. All the tracks were clear. The way to the beach was clear, so it was a different point. But I want to get back to my grandmother. So my grandmother was able to raise her 4 children because she planted everything and raised animals. So my mother and my uncles and my aunt, they were able to eat well and live and maintain a standard of living because she planted. And she would go out in the garden every single morning and pick. And whatever she picked for the day, that was what she made into a meal. So there were some days where she would get a handful of pigeon peas. Right? She would get a handful of pigeon peas. She would dig a hole of cassava. She would get a pumpkin. Right? She might pick 2 green fig. And kind of meals that she would put together with that mix up. You understand? And everybody was well. And so when we think about now, when people talk about the cost of living, I think today I saw in the papers that PriceSmart is raising their prices again, and people are talking about how difficult the food bill is and how hard it is for people to feed themselves. And I'm saying that here is a lesson for us to go back. If we wait for salaries, the money that we earn, to buy everything we need, no matter how much elastic we put in it, it can't stretch to do all of that. And so people have to plant something. I'm always talking about planting, because once you're planting, you can't go hungry, right? One tomato tree can give you 10, 12 pounds of tomato, and nobody plants 1 tomato tree. 1 melon tree will bear for 8, 10 months if you take care of it. Seasonings, every little thing. And so you're able to maintain your health, you're able to save money. And so that's one of the ways that we could go back and take lessons from our ancestors, because you see this way we live in now, where all our food is coming from Trinidad or wherever it's coming from. it's not working for us, it's making us sick. And that's another story altogether.
That's another show.
Yes.
People, how awesome are we at this point of 36 minutes or 36 minutes and 41. Thank you, Alicia. You have enlightened us so deeply, so we can know that if we see a little or a young girl or a young man right now just like to till the soil, let us go back and say maybe he's getting that energy from his ancestors.
Yes.
What an amazing grandmother you are. Well, I know I knew her faintly, but I know is the guy Monday from Bell Garden.
That was my uncle. Yes. Yes, my mother's brother.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have one uncle now. He still plants. He's retired, but he still plants. My mother, even though she lives in Trinidad, she has a massive container garden. She's always trimming something. My daddy always planted something, so I always have something planted because it's food, it's exercise, it's therapy, and it's self-sufficiency. Yes. If the boat doesn't come, I will not starve. Hey. I might have everything I need, but I will not starve. Yeah. And we need to get back. And so when we talk about self-autonomy for Tobago, it's not just waiting on Port of Spain to give us independence, right? Yeah. That is legislative autonomy. That is autonomy at the level of government. And I mean, that's one level of autonomy, but there are autonomies that we can create for ourselves, deciding to make ourselves self-sufficient in some little thing by trading services, by using our skills.
I sit down here and although I have to move now because of timing,
yes,
which I know that you have another show or maybe 2 other shows to really do because of the wealth of your information and and the quality of entrepreneurship that you are sharing and what you do. You can't do one show for Mama Coco live. No, you gotta be here a couple Sundays to come. So
yes. This is nerve-wracking.
As I said, don't forget the nerve-wracking. Don't worry. Your nerves aren't going anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? Because as I sit here and I'm seeing your granny with breadfruit. I don't know if she loved breadfruit, but we're gonna talk about that another time. Did she?
Oh Lord, I love breadfruit. I have two trees.
Alicia, tell us about the life that you had
built for myself. So outside of all of that, I work for myself. I run a business or two along with my family.
Teaching career.
Right. So teaching career, I did some consulting. I worked a couple places, and then I got sick.
Yes.
And when I got sick, that I have to talk about that to talk about the life that I've built. Because when I got sick, that was another turnaround for me. Remember I told you about the turnaround with the Nobel Prize and all of that? That was one turnaround. The second turnaround came when I got sick. I had a stroke in my 30s. I was at work one day. I felt as though somebody hit me with a hammer in my head. And the next thing I knew is that I was on the ground and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't speak. I had a vague idea that people were around me and calling for help, but I was helpless. My body wasn't obeying me, and I was sick. I got to the hospital. They said I had a stroke, and they started a whole different life for me.
Wow.
I went through therapy, traditional therapy, and after a year and a half of traditional therapy, my face was still twisted. I was pulling my foot. I couldn't use my hand. And the doctors told me, well, that's it. That's all we could do for you. This is the best we could do. You've come very far. This is as much as people with the kind of stroke you have, they come back to you. You should be grateful that you could talk. And that wasn't good enough for me because I had so many things that I wanted to do. And
at that time, were you a mother?
My daughter was 7. My daughter was 7. We had just returned from Trinidad and we had come back to Tobago. She was 7. And for almost a year, I couldn't take care of her. I couldn't take care of her. Oh. But the kind of life that the things I wanted to do needed a able body. I needed hands and feet and other things that worked. And so I started looking elsewhere, and we're coming back to the experimenting again. So before that, I thought that Western medicine was the be all and end all of everything. That if you went to a doctor and you took your medication and did whatever, that eventually you would be well. But what happened is that I realized that doctors are only able to treat sickness. They can't make you well, because wellness doesn't come from the place within which doctors operate. Wellness, and this is what I've proven for myself, wellness comes from the way the human body has been designed and going back to first principles. The human body is the most probably complex machinery that has been built. And it comes with a manual for operation from the creator. Some people call him God, people call him other things, but whoever, we were specially designed as the most high-tech creation in this universe. And the operating manual for human beings to stay well is simple. It wants us to keep our connection with the earth. It wants us to eat food from the earth. It wants us to stay connected to the earth. It wants us to live in nature, spend time in nature. It wants us to operate in kindness, not just to ourselves, but to river streams and oceans and animals and everything within the planet. And I started experimenting. I said, what would happen if I moved from a high stress life into a life that was lower stress? So I made a plan to leave my job and start working for myself. And it took about 2 to 3 years to operationalize that plan.
So when you made plans to stop teaching, how was your health then?
I was coming along. I was a school teacher who couldn't really write on the board because my hand wasn't working. I drove left foot because my right foot didn't work very well. But it never stopped me. I was doing my MSc thesis at the point in time when I had the blowout.
How was the brain? How was the brain? Why you became stressful? Because of the inability to use your hands and stuff, but how was your thought?
I had brain damage. I still have some brain damage, but it's getting better. I had a lot of memory lapses. My sense of direction was gone. I couldn't locate myself in the context of space. So if I went anywhere, I had to take pictures of the things along the way and try to trace them back to find my way back home.
Oh.
But I used to get easily tired. I was very irritable sometimes. It was difficult to write, not the words, but to actually spell and put sentences together and all of that. So it was an issue. But even within all of that, yeah, I was doing
you sending me deeper than I really wanted to go. So during that time, because of our culture, did you think that someone did something to you?
Well, I tell people this because, I mean, we live in strange times, and there is a part of the universe that is seen, and there's a part of the universe that is unseen. And I know that there are things in the universe that I can't see, just as there are things that I can see. I also know that there is good and there is bad. But I always say this to people. Whenever your body shuts down on you, you go the medical route first. You go to the doctor and you find out whatever, and there may be a medical cause. Right? If after you've done everything medically and nutritionally and all of that, and you think there is something else, there are other types of doctors. There are priests and exorcists and whoever. There are other types of doctors that you can access. But it's important for us to get out from that, because a lot of people will talk about people doing them things. I mean, we could talk plain here. People talk about people doing them things. I mean, I know a gentleman who talked about somebody doing him something, why his foot was swelling and why he wasn't healing. And you know what? His heart was failing and he was diabetic. You know, so that might not be the situation for everybody. But the thing about it is that it requires wisdom. And requires a certain level of trusting one process, seeing the results you get, and then deciding if you need to do something else. All right? So back to my doing something else. So the doctor said all of that to me, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I started reading and researching. And I decided, you know what? I need to get less stress. I need to go back to eating from the earth, right?